Ballad of the Bard by Laurel R. Call, Book 1. Prologue. The scratching of pen on paper filled the silence. A pause, and then a long, guttural groan followed. "No, what a rotten end," Anjur growled. He pounded his hands on the table as he tried not to shout. It was such a good life, too. Well, until the end. His heart ached. Why did he ever take up the newly crystalled lives? Now he would have to wait to see if there was anything good about that situation. He quickly scribbled down the end, anger in his writing, and dismissed the crystal. As it began to float away, he got up and left, his cloak fluttering around him. He paused. He itched one of his 6 horns and grumbled. As his gaze was cast back at the crystal, he moved a hand to summon it to him. He looked one last time and gritted his teeth. That mother gave her everything, even her life, for that child. Perhaps just this once wouldn't hurt. He would need to hurry, though. He pulled on a blue fingerless glove and moved the hand, feeling the powers surge around it. With a look at his medallion, he contemplated his choices. The domain of time still stood around him, and he gave a crooked grin. He would get in trouble for this if word got out, but he couldn't just let this slide. He left his time domain active and organized a link to the location where the mother was last at. He nearly chuckled when he saw what world she was on and which forest she had fled to. This would be easier than he thought. He went back to his desk while the lines connected and placed the manuscript down. He looked back through the crystalled mind and stretched. He'd been sitting for too long. Now he was going into action. After a few more stretches, he heard the sound of wind and saw the lines had connected. With a mischievous grin, he headed to the connection point and slipped into the realm. He closed his golden eyes, his white hair tousling for that brief connecting moment, and his horns atop his head rang as he heard the screeching. As his eyes opened, he was greeted with the battlefield from the mother's last moments. The smell of blood was still in the air. He frowned as the shadowy things circled around them, keeping a respectful and cautious distance away. He briefly felt a smile tug at the corner of his mouth. At least they seemed intelligent. He walked toward the lifeless body of the mother and heard the muffled whimpers of the boy underneath her. His heart ached again. So young to have lost his parents, but that was this lad's story. He pulled back the mother and noticed one of the shades come at him. Anjur summoned the energy of the moon, and a light exploded from him. The terrifying screech of the creature as the light racked it with pain was very satisfying. But where had they come from? This world had no creations like them here. He would need to pay more attention to what was going on. There was a tiny shriek from the exposed child, and Anjur looked back. He sighed and reached for the power of the night and put the child to sleep. It would be better if he didn't see much, and it would be safer on the crystal record if no one saw him. He then turned his attention to the circling shades. They, however, didn't seem to have crystals, else he would have found out about them earlier. "Let's see just how rusty I've gotten," he grinned, drawing on the power of the moon and encircling them with light. He cast a separate glow on the boy to prevent the shades from coming too close as he began to take them out. Their howls were the stuff of nightmares. Their movements were fleeting as if made of the shadows themselves, and those lifeless red eyes never blinked, never wavered from their target. Anjur dodged as one came in close. Its swipe moved the ground behind him, but when he returned a counter-strike, it fell on nothing. The creature's body moved around his hand. Once again he called on the power of the moon, and the thing shrieked as it was enveloped in light, dissipating as if it really was just a shadow. The others hesitated and then fled, faster than they had appeared. Frankly, it was a bit disheartening when they turned and ran. He was very curious about them, but it was also impossible to catch them. They seemed to be able to shift between physical and non-physical forms. That was already breaking many laws of this world and made them the top of the hierarchical threat chain, which also did not make sense. With one look, he gathered his bearings and smirked. At least, he was in these woods. He had a reliable being here. He could ask about all this too. He then called on the power of the ground and opened a hole to place the deceased mother into and offered her a proper burial before grabbing her son. The boy was young. If memory was right, he should be 5 or 6 years old. Anjur sighed as he cradled the boy in his arms and hummed a tune while walking deeper into the woods. He purposely kept to the places where other living beings were not, avoiding attention as he approached the center of the wood. "Anjur, is that you?" Anjur looked at the largest and oldest tree in the woods. He knew it was the origin of that voice. Magnificent and enormous, buds of gold leaves that would turn green as the summer came. A few ancient bugs and creatures floated around as orbs, giving this place a sense of timelessness. "Hello, Jay. It's been a while. Look, I can't stay long, but can you watch over this boy?" he said as he set the child against the roots. His gaze flickered up at the trunk as he spoke. "Anjur." A voice reverberated in this nearly hallowed ground, so familiar, despite the change in form. "And while I am here, the other creators here didn't happen to make anything that can move between physical and mental realms, shadowy creatures?" Anjur asked as he set the boy's hair as he slept. Such a precious soul. He smiled till he heard Jay's voice again. "Well, no. But," Anjur sighed, "something else was at play here. Figured as much. Well, this is going to be a bit longer of a case than I was hoping for." He stretched as he contemplated all the work coming his way. He realized the dirt and dust on his blue robes and wondered how he would explain this to the others. "Anjur, why are you here?" the tree he called Jay asked. Anjur smiled as he looked back. "Life was finally getting interesting again.